there, thanks for joining me to color. Today we're going to be working on my Color Wednesday blog post for February 1st, 2017. We're going to be using this super cute ConiFongArt image called Molly's Basket of Love. Isn't she cute? I will put a link down in the description box if you'd like to head over and grab an image and color along too. If you have a question, leave me a comment and I'll make sure to get back to you. Otherwise, I printed my image on Neenah 80-pound solar white cardstock, so let's color. So I'm going to start out by giving my image a outline. So for that I'm going to use C0. And I'm going to go down here between her feet and just color this little section in. And then I'm going to start at a little leg warmer and go all the way around to the other side. Go with those little hairs that are poking out. And she's got a little bit here underneath of her face that's showing. And under our basket. Let's give her something to stand on. For that I'm going to use W2 and 0. I'm going to start with my W2. And we're going to do that down here. I'm going to go about the bottom of her leg warmer here and go out. And then I'm going to do a little bit above her foot. And then let's go out this side over here by her little pinky toe. Then I'm going to add W0. And I'm just going to go right over the top of my W2. And then I'm going to add a second coat of W2. Let's do her skin next. For that I'm going to use E11, 00, 000, E50, and then for her cheeks I'm going to use R02 and R01. Let's start down here on her leg. And I'm going to start with my E11. And I'm going to use that to go right along the edge and under her knee. And then we're going to go under her dress. And then I'm going to add E00. And then E000. And I'm going to give it a second coat, so I'm going to go with E21. E00, E000, and then I'm going to go over those with E50. All right, let's go down here and do our feet. So we're going to start with E11. I'm going to do a little dab down here on the bottom of her toes. And then across the top up here where she's the crease. And then let's do under her leg warmer. And we'll do this toe. And over the top of her leg warmer. and along the bottom. Then I'm going to add E00. Oops. And then we'll add E000. And then we're going to give it a second coat, so go with E11. E00. E000. And then over all of that with E50. Okay, let's go up here and we'll do her arms. So again, start with your E11. And I'm going to go right next to her little strap right here. I'm going to go down the outside of her arm. And then over here, let's do her neck. And then across the top of her dress. Down on the back of this arm. And then I'm going to add E00. E000. Then we're going to do a second coat, so go with E11. E00. E000. And then we'll go over all that with E50. Then for her face, we're going to start again with our E11. I'm going to do a little dab right here above her nose. And then let's go down this side of her bangs. And then we're going to bring this around over here to her chin. Then I'm going to add E00. and E000. And then I want to add some cheek color, so let's go with R02. And then R01. And then we'll add our second coat of skin tones. Let's go E11. E00. E000. And then I'm going to go over that with E50. And I think I'm going to add a little bit more pink to her cheeks, so I'm going to go R02. R01. And then we're going to go over that with E000. Let's do her hair next. For that, we're going to use E47, 37, 15, and 35. And we're going to, we're going to start with E47. And I'm going to start up here on her bangs. So let's start right here. And I think I'll bring one down in this way. And then she's got a little bit of hair right over here that's coming out from where it's tucked in. And then we'll do some on her ponytail. Okay, and then we want to do a little bit coming away from our little bow. And then over here, let's go away from this bow. And she's got a little headband there, so don't color that. And then let's do this ponytail. And these bangs. Now I'm going to add E37. Let's start back over here on this side. Add some to her ponytail. And her ponytail. Then I'm going to add E15. And then I'm going to add E35. Then I'm going to grab E47 again. And a little bit down here. And then I'm going to leave it like that. I know, crazy, look at all that white, but I like it. For her dress and her leg warmers, I'm going to use W3100, my Colorless Blender. And I'm going to start with W3. And let's start up here on her little shoulder straps. And I'm going to go a little line down each of those lines that are already drawn there. That. And then down here on these creases on her dress, I'm going to go down those. And then I'm going to add W1. I'm going to go right over the top of my W3. And up here where her arms are, I'm going to flick a little bit away from her arm and then go down this line. And same up here, I want to flick a little bit, just a little bit away from her arm. And we'll go under here. And I'm going to do a little bit right next to the inside of her arm. And then down each of these lines. Then we're going to add W00. Same thing, I just want to go down both of these lines here and soften the edge. Go along this shadow I put under her arm. And then I want to give it a second coat, so I'm going to go with W3. And we're just going to redo the same thing. And then W1. And I'm not going to go underneath of her arms here for the shadows this time. And W00. And then I'm going to take my Colorless Blender and go over the edges of that. I'm going to leave her dress like that. I'm going to go down here and do her leg warmers. So let's go W3. Right down this way. And then I want to add W1. W00. And then my Colorless Blender to soften the edges of that. Let's do the little basket next. For that, we're going to use E43 and 42. I'm going to start with E43. And I'm going to color in her handle back here a little bit. And then we're going to do some coming out of her hand. And around these flowers. And then for the basket, there's a little bit over here. And then we're going to brush across. This, and there's a little bit over here. And then I want to go underneath all of this flowers and leaves. And then I want to add E42. And then I want to do a second coat, so let's do E43 again. And then we'll soften that with E42. Let's do the leaves in the basket next. For that, I'm going to do G28, 94, and 40. I'm going to start with my G28, and because I hardly ever use G28, I pop the other end off of my pen so that it doesn't make a big blob in the middle of my paper. And then we're going to do just each one of these leaves in the center. I'm going to do a little dab right next to where the leaf is touching another leaf. And then I'm going to add G94. And then we'll fill it in with our G40. For the flowers, let's use Y15 for the centers, and then the petals B37, 14, and 02. And I'm going to do the centers first with my Y15. And nothing fancy, I'm just going to color those in. Yeah. And then I'm going to grab my B37, and I hardly ever use my B37, so I'm going to pull the other end off so that I don't make a big blob on my paper. And then I'm going to go down the center of each of these flowers. And there's a line on these, so I'm just using that line that's already there. And for these little ones, I'm just going to add a little dash. Then we're going to do B14. I'm going to color this petal in right here. And then we'll add B02. I'm going to leave them white a little bit at the end. Uh-oh, somebody stopped by. Sorry about that. My dogs freak out every time somebody walks by the house out here, and they're right below my where I shoot my videos. And one was upstairs, so of course he had to fly down there to go bark at whatever the other one was barking at. And then these little ones, I'm just going to fill the petals in. I'm going to do a little bit more on this one over here. Then I'm going to go over my dark blue again with my B37. All right, all the rest of the stuff is going to be red, so for that we're going to use E19, R27, R17, R05, and R22. I'm going to start with my E19. Let's do this bottom of the leg warmers here first. So I'm going to do a little dab right here along the edge. Here, and then for this little heart she's got on here, let's do down the center a little bit and around the top over here. And then I want to add R27. So I'm going to go right over the top of my E19, but I want to go a little bit past, so it's got a new little section of color. And then R17. R05. I'm going to color this one over here in. And then our R22. Okay, so how about this basket with the bow and the little hearts in there? So let's do E19. And I'm going to use these little lines that are already over here. Add a little color on those. And then I'm going to do a little bit at the bottom of my knot. And then these lines. And there's a little dip right here, so I'm going to put a little color right there. And then for this bow, there's a line right here and right here. And then for our little hearts up here, so like this. Over here, we'll go around the back of this one. Then we're going to add our 27. And we'll add some to our hearts. Then we're going to do R17. And I'm going to fill in the rest of this bow and the back here. And then we'll add R05. And then we'll finish that off with our R22. Let's hop up here and do her headband and her little bows in her hair. So again, do E19. And then this side over here. And then we're going to do R27. Then we're going to add our 17. Then we're going to add R05. And our hair bow. And then we want to fill the rest in with our R22. Okay, then we'll go down here and we'll do her dress. So grab E19, and I'm going to do a little dab on each side by her arm. Like so. And then down here on this ruffle, wherever there's a little bump, I'm going to add a little bit of my E19 to that. I'm also going to do a little bit right here next to this flower, where it's dark. And then the same thing over here. And then each of these little bumps. Then we want to add our 27. So I'm going to go right over the top of those little bumps again. Then we're going to add our 17. Then we're going to add R05. Let's do the top of her shirt here, or her dress. And this side of her ruffle. Then we're going to fill in the rest with our R22. So there is our adorable Molly's Basket of Love, all colored up. Isn't she just adorable? I love her. If you would like to see the finished card, you can head over to the store blog and check out blog post for February 4th, 2017. If you have a question, leave me a comment and I'll make sure to get back to you. Otherwise, I hope you had fun coloring with me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!